Welcome to the 700 Club. I might say that our fearless prognosticator, Drew Parkhill, who is our daily producer, told me yesterday that he thought the Dow was going to go up to 30,000 or so.
Wow.
And lo and behold, yesterday it just scored to new heights, and people are feeling wealthier. And Warren Buffett is rejoicing over billions of dollars that have been put in his pocket. So everybody's happy that's in the stock market.
Well, that was a nice bump up.
That's a nice bump up. Well, you've been hearing about these dreamers, these people who came over with their parents, and they've been living here for years. And Obama just, with a stroke of the pen, says, okay, let them in. And so the president said, no, it's going to take an act of Congress to do that. And we'll run this thing through the courts. And the Supreme Court said, well, you can't take it to us. You've got to go through the various stages of the courts and wind up with the 10th Circuit, is the 10th Circus, whatever it is out there, that terrible court. I don't know whether they're going to be the one to decide it or not. But Trump, I think, wants to let them in. Congress wants to let them in, but they just can't get the thing together. So it looks like Washington may be doing everything they can to find a way, because everybody wants to let these nice young people stay in this country and pursue their lives.
Exactly. Well, that possible deal that we're talking about comes after the Supreme Court refused to take up the Dreamers case, and as President Trump plans to look at models for his border wall. Heather Sells brings us the story.
The Supreme Court decision means that the president cannot end the DACA program for Dreamers on March 5th. That buys them and Congress some time.
You know, we tried to get it moved quickly because we'd like to help DACA. I think everybody in this room wants to help with DACA. But the Supreme Court just ruled that it has to go through the normal channels.
The White House believes that DACA is unlawful. President Trump has argued that President Obama exceeded his executive authority when he started the program. DACA allows Dreamers to apply for temporary permits that give them the ability to stay in the U.S. so they can study and work. Dreamers like Daniela and Andrea Gonzalez. Andrea works in social media, and Daniela is getting her master's degree. Both have lived here since childhood and rely on DACA.
I think they don't understand how pressing it is, that it's literally our lives at stake.
The Supreme Court decision bumps the case back to the lower courts, likely going to the 9th Circuit first. The president criticized that liberal-leaning court Monday, saying nothing's as bad as the 9th Circuit. Still, the Supreme Court's move gives Congress more time to debate the issue, which may or may not help to resolve it. Now that the president's plan to end the program on March 5th is blocked, lawmakers may be tempted to put off deciding on DACA once again. If they do take action, the court case will become moot. And The Hill is now reporting that Republican senators plan to put a DACA fix in next month's government funding bill. Meanwhile, the president is seeking $18 million to move forward with plans to beef up security along the border and build a wall. He'll visit California in the next few weeks to check out wall prototypes near San Diego.
If the president can get a win on the wall and a win on DACA, he'll be able to demonstrate to some of his key constituents and independent voters that he can get the job done. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Well, it'll certainly be to the benefit of the Republicans to get this thing done. It'll make them look good. And the immigrant population needs a champion, and Trump is that champion. So he wants to get this thing done, but he didn't want to do it with executive authority. He wants it to be done legislatively, and he wanted a quick fix. And I said erroneously 10th Circuit. I think Heather said 9th Circuit. I had the wrong circuit where it'll go, whatever. You know, I want to correct one thing. The gun aficionados are really precise. They really look carefully at what they... I was in the Marines like 60 years ago. I shot a gun called the Browning Automatic Rifle, BAR, and I scored expert with the BAR in the Marines. Now, they call that an automatic rifle, but as I recall, you had to squeeze the trigger each time to get a shot. but it was called an automatic rifle. Now they say that the AR-15, the one that everybody's arguing about, they said, well, that really is a civilian weapon. And
civilian weapon?
Well,
really?
I don't believe it. I think it's a combat weapon. Somebody wrote in and said, no, it's not. It's not as effective as the lesser of the combat weapons, which is the M3 or something. I'm not up on those things. All I know is the old days, it was called an automatic weapon. It had a tripod, and you shot each time, as I recall. I guess if you held the trigger, you would fire more than once, but it had a bigger magazine. And I think that's the problem, is that whether you hold the trigger and it sends a burst, or whether you pull the trigger each time, you've got a magazine full of things and you can just go bang, bang, bang as fast as you can move your trigger.
The amount of ammunition it holds. Yeah.
That's right. So it has to do with the magazine, not so much as the quality. But I stand corrected. If whoever called our staff is right, I stand corrected, because let's face it, I'm 60 years out of the military. I did pretty well when I was in it, but I don't know all the permutations with the weapons that are being created. And all I was saying, as I say it again, automatic weapons should not be in the hands of youngsters and civilians.
I think a lot of people would agree with you on that.
But whether you call it a military weapon or a civilian weapon or whatever, it's still, in my opinion, when I was shooting them, they were called automatics, and they still are already. Well, in other news, a huge rebound on Wall Street. It was said at the beginning of the program that sharp sell-off a few weeks ago. This is cut in half. John Jessup has that story.
That's right, Pat. Stocks have come almost all the way back since that correction earlier this month. The Dow Jones Industrials have rallied sharply in the last 2 days, up almost 750 points. Despite concern among some investors when the market was falling, many analysts said it was just a short-term correction and not the beginning of a bear market. Still, some experts caution the market could suffer more pullbacks, but they expect it to go higher in the months ahead. And legendary investor Warren Buffett told CNBC he believes the Republican tax cut will provide a, quote, huge tailwind for businesses. Well, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says American evangelicals are the best friends Israel has. That sentiment was expressed after evangelical leaders recently visited the Jewish state and met with the Prime Minister. Chris Mitchell brings us that story.
Netanyahu met with leaders who serve on President Trump's Evangelical Faith Advisory Board, who pointed out to CBS News they were not representing the president on their trip. The meeting was arranged by Mike Evans, founder of the Friends of Zion Heritage Center in Jerusalem. The 17 evangelical leaders visited Israel recently as guests of Israel's Ministry of Tourism. CBS News met up with them at the Tower of David Museum in Jerusalem's Old City.
Jerusalem is like home because of our faith and because so many significant events that we read about every day in the Bible happen right here in this very place.
The trip is part of an ongoing program intended to strengthen and deepen ties with evangelicals in the U.S.
Most of us on this group actually lead groups, and so this is a chance to see the latest discoveries and have briefings by government officials about what's happening in God's land.
CBS News spoke with Harvest Ministry pastor Greg Laurie, Dr. Robert Jeffrey, senior pastor of First Baptist Church in Dallas, and Dr. Jack Graham, pastor of Prestonwood Baptist Church in Plano, Texas.
Many of us connected because we have been a part of the President's Faith Initiative. We're not here representing the President, but we are here as friends and supporters of Israel.
The trial could actually take place instead of King Herod here with Pilate, right here, because Pilate was actually residing in the Easter time, in Pesach, Passover, within the palace of King Herod.
Shahar Shiloh serves as a consultant for the Tower of David Museum in Jerusalem.
We're always saying, before coming to Israel, you read the Bible, you see it in black and white. Once visited Israel, in every chapter, every time you read about Paul, Peter, or Jesus, it's all vivid and vibe, and everything becomes in full color, full HD, 4K. Something happens in your soul.
While many of the leaders had visited before, they still talked of seeing new things.
We just saw a spot a few moments ago I've never been to before that they think might be the actual area where Christ was tried. And that was amazing to me.
We're told in the scriptures Jesus was taken from Pilate. into Herod's castle or palace, and here we are for the first time in my life to see it.
We asked about the importance of U.S.-Israel relations.
I think in some ways America needs Israel as much as Israel needs America, because there is a blessing promised in the book of Genesis to those that would bless Abraham and his descendants, the Jewish people. So I think as we've stood with the only real democracy in the Middle East, and not just that, but because they've been our true friends and allies.
We understand every other nation in the world has the right to name its own capital. Why shouldn't Israel? 3,000 years ago, David was the one who named Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. We're simply confirming what history's already taught us.
Although this trip is meant to encourage visits to Israel, these men see it as a pilgrimage that goes deeper than tourism.
The Bible is sort of like the GPS of Israel. You follow your Bible around this city and around this land, and you'll see so much. That's so important.
And when we come here, we see once again that our faith is not built on fiction, it's built on historical fact. And I find people have a whole new way of understanding and believing the Bible after they've been to Israel.
Chris Mitchell, Tower of David Museum, Old City, Jerusalem.
A lot of familiar faces in that package. Back to you.
We are encouraged that. We're so glad that those Christian leaders, I've been over there so many times. We had a television station, you know, in southern Lebanon that was broadcasting into Israel. And we've had cable and all the rest of it. But the Jews are our friends, and they know, and I think Bibi Netanyahu has said it so eloquently, that the evangelical Christians are the best friends Israel has, and we think that Israel is the real spirit of democracy in the Middle East, and the Islamic people want to destroy Israel. And I was reading today there's some forecast that possibly within a year there might be some kind of a war with Iran and Israel, because Iran has those proxies. Hezbollah is a proxy, and some of the other radical groups are proxies of Iran, and they're making it tough for the Israelis. So anyhow, we just pray it won't happen. But, you know, the Battle of Armageddon is not going to be at Megiddo. It's going to be in Jerusalem. It'll be a fight for Jerusalem, and those men were in Jerusalem, so we're looking at Jerusalem. Well, by the way, we've been talking here on this program about diet, about healthy eating, and now there's another study out that is even more revolutionary that I think everybody should listen to and heed what is being said. Here's John.
That's right, Pat. In health news, if you want to decrease your chances of depression as you get older, you might try improving your diet. The popular DASH diet will not only cut your risks of hypertension, but new research from Chicago's Rush University shows it can reduce the possibility of depression later in life as well. The DASH diet emphasizes vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and fat-free or low-fat dairy, along with limiting foods high in saturated fats or sugar. Depression is common in older adults, and the author of the study says he wanted to see if diet could be an effective way to cut the risk for depression, because making lifestyle changes like diet is often preferred over taking medications. And Pat, experts are increasingly saying the DASH diet is overall the best for your health.
Well, it's one of many, but I concur totally, and I've been following along those lines for years. And
it is one of many. It's hard to know today. You know, you read this doctor says this person says that.
South Beach is really a good one, the doctor who put that out. But there are many others, but the whole, it comes down to the fact that saturated fat, and especially sugar is the killer. We've been talking about sugar and how much sugar there is in the diet, and high fructose corn syrup is in almost everything, and it is causing people to get fat and have depression. So we want you to be happy in your old age.
So avoid it.
I'm trying my best to be happy in my old age.
Right. Yeah, so we're going to hold you to that.
All right, we'll all be happy. All right.